grave here is a Hegarty grave, and it's the Hegartys of the Laurels, if any of you have heard anything about them. And in fact, there's a Jim Hegarty who's present here tonight, who actually wrote the book. So there's a book written about them, and there's also a film made. There was a short film made about the particular family. And I said earlier, back along, about the amount of history that's buried here. And when you hear the story, and I hope I do it justice, I'm not going to go through the whole book. You're getting a very short synopsis, but I think the rain is due soon. So, the Hegarty of the Laurels are on Tory Road. If you go out Tory Road, you either drive it past, walk it past, or stagger it past the half bar, if you know where the half bar is. You go through the lights, and when you go through the lights, on the right hand side, there's a house right out at the edge of the footpath. And that was Hegarty's house. And the Hegarty family were very, very important family to help us in our freedom and what they did for us. That particular house, the Laurels, was an army headquarters, as in the illegal army. It was the Irish Volunteers. It was their headquarters on the south of the city. It was an arms dump. It was a bomb-making factory. It was a distribution centre. So really and truly, that house and the Hegarty family put so much into our freedom, just the same as the O'Gormans that we did back along, and some more that we'll be doing later on, but maybe not tonight, but on the next walk. So the Hegarty family, there was a John Joe Hegarty, whose name is on the grave here, and there was his two sisters. There was Mary Frances, who was known as Mimi, and Joanna, who was known as Nan. And they lived on, like I said, on the Tory Road. And they played a huge part in the Cork Brigade. And during the Civil War and the whole lot, when there were checkpoints all over the place, and that the two sisters travelled around Munster distributing arms, both arms, ammunition and bombs that were made on the Tory Road. And they were very friendly and worked for the Sarsfield family, a Captain Sarsfield. And you all know where Sarsfield Road is in Cork. And that's where the Sarsfield family were, and that's where they lived. And because Captain Sarsfield was of British descent and was kind of accepted by the British, when it came to checkpoints and the whole lot, the sisters were never searched, and they were always given the clearance to actually travel through. So the John Joe himself, who was one of the main leaders of H Company in the second battalion, and when he died, actually, and you can see I'm shortening it up, I'm not going through the book, in 1973, there was a guard of honour here given by the Irish Army over the grave, and they fired a number of shots. And after they discharging the shots, the cases from the bullets actually fell onto the ground. And John Joe's son at the time stooped down to pick up the shells. And John Joe's son is actually present here tonight with us. And he's the man who wrote the book. And he actually stooped down, I hope he doesn't mind me telling the story, he actually stooped down to pick up the shells. And the officer in charge of the firing party actually stopped him from picking up the shell cases because they had to be taken back to Collins's barracks and all accounted for. But there was a voice came from within the crowd that said, "Leave the lad alone." And when Jim, the son, turned around and looked at the voice was that of General Tom Barry of the flying column, the commander of the flying column. So luckily enough, you had an intelligent army officer who minded his own business and did what he was told by the flying column general. And so Jim is so lucky to actually still hold those shell cases in his possession. So this is the Hegartys, and I've only just touched on the surface of what they've done throughout their lives in order to help us for freedom. And as we're all standing here, if you just turn around and if you look at a grave here, which is called John Ford, and it's John Ford of Kaiser's Hill, and you might know the name of Ford's, and it's John Ford's Funeral Home, both of Kaiser's Hill, French's Quay, Turner's Cross, Carrigaline. I'm like an advertising poster here, but just in case you want to go and you want to know where to go. So this particular John Ford, who was married to Mary Frances, which is Mimi, of the Hegarty family, he worked for an undertaker in Cove at the time, and during the war, when the Americans were killed in Europe, a lot of them were brought back to Cove for their bodies to be prepared and embalmed, and the whole lot to be sent on to America. And John Ford was one of the fellows that looked after the whole lot of it. And back then, when a soldier was embalmed and ready to be laid to rest, they were always laid to rest with their sidearms. But with the help of John Ford, those sidearms always made their way to the Laurels in Tory Road. So you can see the connection. And also, with the help of John Ford and Mimi, the information that they gathered from the American troops coming back through Cove was invaluable as a kind of an intelligence route for the IRA and the whole lot to actually carry out work against the British. So that's two people buried across from one another, or two families with a link, and a massive link to fighting for our freedom. So that's both the Hegarty family and the Ford family. So we're moving on.